All right, here we go. Special edition of KnicksFanTV presented by KnicksFanTV.com. CP The Fanchise here, and I am joined by one of my favorites, man, one of my heroes from my New York football Giants, man. He won the Super Bowl with the Giants in Super Bowl 42. One of the greatest catches, no, it is the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. Put some respect on his name. He's also the host of the Catch the Moment podcast. He is the entrepreneur, the owner of DT3 Enterprises, man. This man wears many hats and also hosts Odds and Ends betting show on MSG. Welcome to the show, David Tyree, number 85. David, welcome to KnicksFanTV, man. It's been a long time coming. Thanks again for joining us.
CP, it's a pleasure to finally build, man. You're leading the charge and making sure that the Knicks is highly respected. So it's a pleasure to finally connect and build a little bit.
Big time, man. And, you know, when I do these interviews, what I love most is talking to people about their journeys. I always love to hear about the journeys and how people overcome different obstacles and rise to success and their grind after, you know, life after sports. So I appreciate you coming on here. And before we get into, you know, go through your football journey, you were also a good basketball player, as I learned. So talk a little bit about those days back at Montclair.
Yeah. Those were definitely the early years. I think, you know, Montclair definitely changed my life in regard to sports in general. You know, East Orange in the earliest years, suburb, gritty. In Montclair, sports was kind of fabricated into the social culture. So middle school just got in football, baseball, basketball. I remember I was kind of being groomed even in sixth grade for an AAU team, and I was not really even aware of it. And you know, just working out in Jersey City, and then, you know, summertime came, and it was, you know, it was like, yo, do I go back and play football? Which I did. So I felt like I was probably the best player I ever was in the sixth grade, but still played through my sophomore year in high school. You know, 6'1". I was actually more like had the power forward, drop step game. You know what I mean? You know, just ice. You know, jump shot and dribble game was very average. You know, let's just say that much. But definitely respectable. Dennis Rodman plus type game.
Okay. Who's your NBA team back in those days?
Oh, it was always Knicks, man.
Okay.
I was in the 80s, baby. And I go back to the Kenny Walker, Trent Tucker, Johnny Newman, Jared Wilkins. That's what I knew. That's what I breathed. And it stuck with me. I've been riding, you know, like I said, I don't get a chance to get to the Garden. I'm raising a bunch of kids. Yeah. But I've been riding hard for the Knicks since my childhood. I don't have any affections for any other team. I don't care about basketball apart from the Knicks. Yeah. So it's been tough, but we keep riding.
Tried and through, true and true, man. Who was your favorite Knick of all time?
Oh my goodness, John Starks.
Okay.
Just, you know, like, and I didn't know the story. It was, you know, if you're a true Knicks fan, you understood who Starks was, but it was like he was streaky, but he was gritty. And I think that I just had so much respect for him, and of course the iconic, like, you know, Patrick Ewing is the easiest. For me, it was either Starks or Anthony Mason. I probably had a little bit more endearment toward Anthony Mason. Just you know, it was all of that. It's hard not to say Charles Oakley, but I had so many favorites. But yeah, it was definitely that era of Knicks basketball. Hard to choose out of those three: Oak, Starks, and whatchamacallit, and Mason.
Yeah, I would say, well, Ewing number one for me. Obviously, that's how I really got into it. He's in his own. Yeah, he's a GOAT. Yeah. He's God mode. You know, after everything that he did with this team and put this team on his back, he's definitely God mode. But Mason, his versatility, his ruggedness, the style. He had it all. He was New York through and through. And Starks. You know, Starks is my guy too. I got the dunk poster behind me. They just the way they represented the city, man. They were just a blue collar group. It was so easy to root for and fall in love with those early, you know, 90s teams for me.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Ewing's kind of God status. There's no one to compare to him. And the crazy thing about it was when I moved to Montclair, right around the corner was a barbershop called Young's. And, you know, it's right around the corner. And I walked through there, and through the glass is Patrick Ewing. So, you know, Montclair was one of those dope little towns that would attract all kinds of people. But, yeah, you know, I would see Ewing and the barbershop once in the blue, be well protected, of course, but it definitely, definitely set the gaze from like even my sports journey. So it was special being a Knicks fan growing up.
Yeah, man, and shout out to those days, and Montclair had some hoopers too, man. We had Brevin Knight on the show earlier this season when we were previewing the Knicks and Memphis game. Yep. So we were talking to him about it, and you were born in Livingston. And he was born in Livingston, and I made the mistake when I opened the show saying that he was from Livingston. He was like, no. I'm from East Orange, Montclair area. Get it right. Get it right.
Yes. I get that. I have to clear that up as well. Most of us, we borrowed the hospital over there at St. Barnabas. And I'm an East Orange, Montclair kid. Commuted into Montclair when I was 10 years old. It definitely changed my life. So I say I'm from Montclair. But all my family's in East Orange, Newark, and Irvington. So, it's a different pedigree. It's similar but different from Jersey to New York. But, jumping on that Knicks gravy train was special.
Absolutely, man. And we'll talk about the latest with the team a bit later. But talking about your journey and coming up through Jersey, obviously football was your passion, and you came up through the ranks there. You end up going to Syracuse, but according to you, that was one of the darkest times of your life. Describe that a little bit. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I was my vices as a young kid growing up in our era, single parent home, divorce home. Dad was very supportive and all that, but you just kind of finding your way. So that comes with 14 alcohol, 15 marijuana, and it's all play, weekend stuff here, social. You might puke every now and then, and you make light of it as a young kid growing up. And I think it became tied to my identity, of course, with the women and everybody out here doing your thing. And I think as you grow, I'm being a grown man now, but you arrive on campus and then you're in Syracuse, and the reality is it's a private institution. It's a great opportunity, but binge drinking is in the environment, and I fit the bill and then it became not just, socializing, then it became blackouts. Then it became, and that's the interesting thing, because as normal as it is, I wonder how many people are really comfortable with waking up the next day not knowing exactly what happened the night before. And you kind of like just breeze through these things in your youthfulness and in your foolish dispositions. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm like, I wasn't always comfortable. I woke up some nights in the morning, some mornings, and I'm butt naked. I don't know what I did the night before. It's laughable, but then it's also concerning deep in the, in the depth of your heart. So, you kind of just, you don't know any better. So you just doing what you know. And I was fortunate to have sports as a guiding light. Yeah, I had a girl, I'm kind of, I was a well-meaning jerk is the best way I can say it, And I think I understand athletes in so many different challenges, vices, and obstacles to overcome. Those are my dark days because, I was insulated with the sport that I love, but I was also insulated with my demons and not knowing how to overcome them. And like I said, fortunate I didn't ruin my future with some of those foolish decisions and foolish behaviors. But yeah, it's we're not as honest as most people would like to say when you're battling those demons of addiction, et cetera. So I was a functioning alcoholic, not really knowing it. And I was just fortunate that the sport was louder than my demons.
Yeah, and as you said, the sport was louder. You were still able to excel at Syracuse. You go through the NFL Combine process, and but they told you it could be fourth round or it could be nothing. What was that draft day like for you? What do you remember about that when Ernie Accorsi picked up the phone and gave you a call?
I was off the radar going into my senior year, so it was actually the birth of my son that gave me a hope for a chance at the NFL. I never felt like I arrived anywhere at Syracuse because I never had this super stellar season or career. So, just to be on the radar, hear that, and it's weird when you hear fourth round and not at all, because that's actually true. Like, it's a real evaluation process because there's so many intangibles. I run well. I do a lot of things well. Obviously, the special teams was my avenue in, and I knew that. But, I'm at home with the family, just enjoying it, not expecting much, but hopeful. And so when I get the phone call and it's the New York Giants, that's a dream come true. And it's like you go from just almost nodding off on the couch to hearing this hometown team. And next thing you know, my phone clicks and it's the Detroit Lions. Hey, we got the first pick in the 7th round. I'm like, well, I got the Giants. I got hot real quick right toward the end of the draft. But it was 2 days back then. And of course, the team being 20 minutes away, it was the dream that I didn't even know existed coming to fruition, being a kid from Montclair in Essex County, having a chance to live it out right in my backyard.
It kind of comes full circle, but it also seemed like maybe that was a gift and a curse, because talk a little bit about your rookie year and some of the highs and the lows that came with it.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, man. It was the gift and the curse. I mean, ultimately, when we arrive at places, when we arrive at mountaintops, the biggest challenge is having a character that can sustain the limelight, right? And I think most of us, we want our moments in the sun as athletes, and I kind of finally had it, but I really didn't have the character and the bandwidth to sustain it. And I had a lot of success on the field. I was the NFL Special Teams Rookie of the Year, New Jersey Sports Writers, Giants Rookie of the Year. And I delivered the goods. I kind of had a 100-yard receiving game off the bench against Philly my rookie year. So, they weren't expecting much, and I gave them a little more than they were expecting, or as expected, with a little extra sauce. But off the field, man, I'm coming into practice half drunk, smelling like whatever, doing whatever. And that was me. That was just genuinely me being who I was and testing the limits. And in the offseason, man, I was that dude. I was going to keep it real. I think Fossil hit me with about $10,000 in fines. It should have been about $40,000. But ultimately, I'm like, man, I got the best bud. Dipset is bumping up. I got the perp. And I'm wild now. I'm like, listen, I got the best. I might as well, sell it. So that was my mentality when I hear some of these things that athletes go through. I've made the worst decisions, and I'm fortunate to live through them and make some of the better decisions. So I understand the life cycle, the error in thought. And basically it all came to a head. I get arrested on marijuana possession after my rookie year, right at Fort Lee. And that was my road to Damascus. That was me coming to the end of myself. And I just knew I needed change. And it started with a simple prayer of faith that I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know it was going to change my life, but it did, to the better. And I got a chance to redirect my life, my career, and reestablish myself as a man that could sustain success moving forward.
So it was basically your faith or rediscovering your faith that really helped you turn it around.
It was, CP. I didn't have a faith, man. I grew up, in a non-religious home, and it was good. I had great parents who were supportive. They were well-meaning. They did their best, and often, the parental narratives can be really challenging and strong, but I recognized that my parents did their best with what they knew and what they had. So I wasn't embittered, but, they didn't have the faith to give me, so I was fortunate to have that moment of sincerity. I said, God, all I know is I need you. If you can allow me to keep my job, I'd appreciate that too. And it was almost like a domino. I didn't know who Jesus was. And ultimately I had this crash course. My aunt invited me to church. And next thing you know, I walk out of there. I never drink again, never smoke again. I was married 3 months later. And I was kind of laying a track where my life could be reconciled, the relationships could be reconciled in the most healthy way. And, it was violent. The change was violent. And there's a lot that you don't know even about the faith, but I was able to just hold fast and navigate it. And God was faithful that I could be the player, the man, the father, the husband that, when you talk about being in position to influence people, that's basically, you want to have some things buttoned up. And very few young men have you got to walk through the gauntlet. And God kind of walked me through that furnace, and I was tried and tested, and I can kind of get my life moving in the right direction to hold that platform as an athlete.
And when you fast forward to 2007, which is the Super Bowl year, before we look at the glory, there was more adversity that you were facing. Talk a little bit about that season for you.
Yeah, man, it was tough on every end. The season starts. I missed the first 2 games with a wrist fracture. And, and it's tough for a guy like myself, even though at the time I'm the highest paid special teams player in the league, you always feel like, you're at risk of, being on a bubble. Maybe they could pay a young guy a little cheaper and do the same thing in their mind. So, I wasn't the shoe-in, but yeah, I ride into it. And, and I'm always looking for the opportunity as a receiver and trying to position myself. My third year, I was the third wide receiver, didn't work out. So that was my journey. And, but at the end of the day, I have these aspirations. I work through the injury, come back, do my job on special teams. And in the middle of a playoff push in December, I lose my mother. So, she had cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and I missed 2 games, because I found out the night before the Washington game, and I had to go, just kind of lead the family and walk with the family through getting her back to Jersey and bringing her back home because she was in Florida. So missed 2 games, and next thing you know, we clinched the playoffs with a win against Buffalo. Coach Coughlin chooses to, go to war against the Patriots that last game of the regular season. Because Shockey got hurt, we went to more 4 wide receiver formations and passing downs. And that kind of was the inroad to me playing more in the middle of a playoff push, obviously up to the Super Bowl, which, I had a role. And, a fun little story I shared, CP, was the night before the game, my teammate Michael Jennings, his mom, I got to know her the previous year. And she was a pastor in Florida. Her name was Kimberly Daniels, and she was just a great woman. And she was like, "Hey, let's pray." It was the night before the game, and she's like, "Hey," she starts praying for the family, praying for blessing. You just want to get covered up, get that little blessing, and then it kind of shifted. She says, "David, God is quickening your feet. He's giving you hinds feet like the feet of a deer to jump high." And then she says, "The Lord is putting spiritual glue on your head." And the last thing she said is, God's going to give you the big play.
Wow.
So this is the night before the game, bro. It's like, I'm just trying to get covered up and get a little blessing and get right.
Yeah.
And she delivers these words, and I'm a believer, so I just believe. And I go in, and when she says God's going to give you the big play, I'm thinking the most forgotten touchdown in Super Bowl history, bro. So that's in the game plan. I hope they dial it up, and they do. And the last thing, her husband actually got on the phone and says, the world will no longer remember you as a special teams player, but as a wide receiver. Here I am, this unknown dude. These words are coming the night before the Super Bowl. And I just go out there and pray and believe God. And next thing you know, it's not the touchdown. It's what eventually becomes the helmet catch.
Right.
But I like to call catch 42, and God does the miraculous. So amazing year, amazing run, just to be a part of it, be a part of the narrative in New York was special for a kid like me coming from the mud in Jersey.
And all of that is happening, but the Friday practice, the last walkthrough, you're dropping every pass. You can't make it up. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, bro. Yes, straight put me out on Front Street on up in smoke. But yeah, it's a story that's well been told. It's so like I don't even give that much thought to it. And there's this soundbite between Eli and Peyton where they had this little huddle up after the Super Bowl where they're like, I told you he's a gamer. So in my mind, of course, a bad practice is like, drop a pass, drop 2 passes. I dropped 5, 6, I don't know how many it was. And it was horrible. It's like the Friday practice is supposed to be the dress rehearsal, supposed to be clean, crisp. And I'm taking all Plaxico's, reps because, he didn't practice that year much at all, but then I think he re-aggravated something.
Right.
But in my mind, it really didn't matter because I was taking all those reps anyway. So yeah, man, it was not the performance that you're looking for as a professional. But honestly, I throw it out the window. It really wasn't a blip on my mental radar because it's practice. I'm on my AI. It's just practice. So and I got it out my system. Eli gave me some love after practice. He knew I'd be ready, and we went to work when the lights was on.
We're talking to David Tyree, Super Bowl champion with the New York Football Giants, also the host of the Catch the Moment podcast. And David, as we talked about the adversity that you had faced in that 2007 season and battling those demons in the past, did you ever to deal with the pressure and the adversity and losing your mom, did you ever think to go back to drinking and go back to some of your demons? Did that ever cross your mind?
It's a great question. I don't even know if anyone has ever asked me. I never did. And the way, like when you struggle with substance abuse in any measure, when you struggle with, there's so many, addiction is addiction. Like you got sexual addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction. It's a vice that typically is masking some pain. And thank God, the way God moved in my life, I was so satisfied. I didn't even have to even overcoming the addiction. It was like, man, I had no desire for it anymore. Whereas I didn't know my previous identity apart from some of those moments. I didn't drink every day, but every social opportunity there was, very much so. And usually to the point of, I was trying to go there. I'm like, I tell people I like my faith like I like my alcohol, straight no chaser. Get all the extra stuff away from it. So at that moment of calamity, my comfort, my source, my peace was the faith and the people that secured me in that time of adversity. And it was great to get back to ball and basically have a work purpose that could fuel that tragedy or that difficulty that obviously we experience that kind of loss as a human.
Definitely shows a lot of strength. And leading up to the catch and the win, as a kid, I'm watching that, and the last drive, obviously with the catch and everything, it was a shocker, but I wasn't surprised that you guys had beat the Patriots because I was at that game, week 17, at home. Giants versus Patriots. Patriots going for the undefeated season. I was right there when Moss caught that. I think it was over James Butler. I felt like they ran that deep route twice. He missed it. He overthrew him once, and then he got him again. I was sitting right there in the upper deck like, damn. But I kid you not, I've never been to a Giants game where after a loss, we were so upbeat. There was something about that game where, we were disappointed that, that we didn't crash their history.
No doubt.
But we just felt good about the team going into the playoffs, especially the adversity leading up to it. Coughlin's job on the line and the win in Buffalo certainly sparked that. But it was just the way that team played that I was like, if we make this run through the playoffs, we can beat this team.
No doubt.
And then you go, a lot of people, they talk about, this is luck and this, that, and third. A lot of people don't remember you guys were road warriors on that playoff run. You beat the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 best teams in the NFC. Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. Yep. Dallas in Dallas after Dallas beat you guys early in that season pretty handily. And then Green Bay on literally the frozen tundra. That was one of the most classic games I had ever seen, man. So certainly wasn't surprising that you guys were able to get the job done. But after, the confetti's coming down and the trophies being hoisted up, did you ever reflect back on your past and the adversity and losing your mom that same season? Did you ever reflect on all that as you holding the trophy?
Yeah. People, that's probably one of the biggest questions I've gotten through the years is, what were your thoughts or your emotions? And I said, the only word I could find was awe, because I probably experienced every emotion in the span of hour post game. My mom was my sports. She was the biggest fan. We did sports together. We did the World Series runs together. We watched tennis together. My dad was my biggest supporter, but my mom was, we was in the house she was a sports mom. And so it was everything. And ultimately it was that moment of validation where, like when you kind of this guy that no one believes in and no one, is ever expected to do anything at the position, it was finally that moment of validation for me internally. And of course, I'm hoping to build on it. Obviously, that wasn't in the cards. But in that moment, in that isolated moment, I was whole. And so it was excitement. It was joy. It was tears. It was everything. So I was in awe of God. I was in awe of what we just accomplished and amazed that I would be a part of it in this way.
Yeah, no doubt, an incredible accomplishment. And then, so the next season, you had an injury-riddled season, then you missed that entire season. You would ultimately go on to Baltimore, and then ultimately your career had pretty much come to an end. How did you handle that? How did you handle your career arc, being a star at Syracuse, coming in your rookie year, being an outstanding special teams player, the heroics in the Super Bowl? How did you handle the end of your career?
Yeah, the decline was tough, and I think it was tough because I knew that, the journey had gotten to this place, and you're expecting and hoping and believing. And I had faith of all faiths. I had beliefs of all beliefs. I had no reason not to believe that God could kind of, restore this. And it was like a 2-year journey where I was dying, so internally, I experienced every disappointment where from that moment of my life transforming after my rookie season, everything was on the incline and after it. But I remember, after the Super Bowl, I said some things that I genuinely meant. I said, well, if my career was to end at this moment, 5 years in, I've been to a Pro Bowl, All Pro, I win a Super Bowl, greatest catch in Super Bowl history, I'm satisfied. And ultimately, that's the way it proved to be with that injury. And ultimately, there were things that I couldn't control. So I felt like I'm giving my best. And by the time I had that last hurrah with Baltimore, I loved the game, but I just knew I wasn't going to be in the rabbit race of trying to work out every day and be ready for a call 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks down the system. Now I was expecting my 5th child, and I was a different man at that point in my time in my career. So I had a lot of peace with what I accomplished, 7 seasons in the league when no one ever expected it. My accomplishments in my eyes, whereas I knew I was a football player. Like that was it. It wasn't about being the best receiver. It was about you the best football player, and whatever they ask you to do, you could do it. And that's why it was easy for me to be satisfied. And I compared myself to no one because I conquered the mountains that I needed to conquer.
That's real, man, because as we see in sports, it's not an easy thing to accept that. I mean, I just heard an interview the other day on Keyshawn and Max's show. T.O. still looking to come back into the league. So, some guys, it's never enough, man.
I don't want to say it like it's bad, but it's like, it's kind of like, we make the analogies often with boxers, and it's like, when is enough? It's not about whether you can play. Like, what kind of relationship do you have with glory? I don't know what it is. And it's not a knock, because it's not that this dude can't perform. This dude can still run and perform. But I've always wanted to have a sober relationship with life. Like, have everything be tied to purpose and not just to, my own ambition. So, I try to live out this truly, meaningful, this life where it's not just about moments, but it's about meaning.
That's real, man. And my guy number 10, Eli Manning, seems to be enjoying life after football. What was one of your favorite Eli stories coming up with him on this journey?
Golly. All right, so I don't have a lot of Eli stories. I will say, what you're seeing now is what we've seen through the years in the locker room is, you would suddenly find out that this goofy dude is behind so many random pranks in the locker room, from the invisible ink in Joker's gloves and cleats. And but that was a subtle ascension. Obviously I'm a year ahead of Eli. We actually share the same birthday, so I'm a year ahead of him in draft class. But it's also like this dude was slowly emerging to be that leader. Like, it was like Simba, taking the crown, and he finally took the crown the year we won that first Super Bowl. So the stories that I have were definitely true in relation to, here's this dude. He always had like the relatability. He was so driven toward the work, but he's also so awkward. Like, and now we're seeing that awkward comedy personality in full-fledged with the Eli Manning show. So it's dope watching my man find his niche post-career. And it's, he was that dude, but he had to become it, which is why you have to love him.
What was one of the key takeaways from Tom Coughlin? What'd you learn?
You know what? I can't express how much I like, like adore and admire the man that he became and the man that he was and the man, because he was consistency. The biggest thing for Tom Coughlin, he wasn't a surprise for me because I had a tough college coach who was very similar at Syracuse, Paul Pasqualoni. And so, even though I had Fossil, it was like my rookie year was a blow it year. I'm out here blowing it. And he blew it and we moved on. And Coughlin comes in and it's like this strict, stern character. I'm like, oh, you remind me of Coach P. But he was consistent, he was mature, and and that was the central message. The first year was we had to get it out our system that this dude is unchanging. But as a coach, as a man who was prepared, as a man who understood men and leadership, he shaped so much that I learned from. Still, like the 5-minute rule is the most told, fabric that he prepared us to be men. And I think that there's no one from our era that didn't get that doesn't value it, because although he wasn't warm and endearing, he was consistent in messaging and action. And that's a leadership trove that everyone can learn from. I think we learned how to be a little bit more intuitive with understanding people, but honestly, just his give in our Super Bowl run is the reason why when we went out bowling, we went out and we did some things that allowed us to recognize that he's not just a great coach, he's a human. And so that was his twist and change. That Super Bowl run was the icing on the cake that allowed, that culture to reap the rewards of a tremendous leader.
We're talking to Super Bowl champion David Tyree, also the host of the Catch the Moment podcast. Salute to Knicks Nation out there. Hit that thumbs up button for your boys. David, thoughts on this current team? Obviously, you cover the Giants. You cover them on MSG and those properties, as well as the post-game show. An impressive year so far under Brian Daboll and the new GM Joe Schoen. What's your thoughts on this team right now as they make this playoff push, just coming off of a win over the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, I'm amazed at this turnaround, right? I think that Brian Daboll, they should just close the voting for Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
I think Brian Daboll is hands down Coach of the Year. I was within the front office through 2020, and I was sadly on board for some of the toxic, leadership that the organization had to weather through. It was a tough position to be in my role because I'm kind of like a cog in the middle of players and front office. And, you have to learn how to run stuff up and down the chain. So to see what has happened with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll and his team, this is a case study on culture change and turnaround, and this team is built on belief. Honestly, I didn't think that they would be able to make the playoffs with the injury thing. It wasn't about it's the injuries that they've endured, which is the exclamation point why I believe he should be Coach of the Year. And I do believe they're going to make this playoffs at this point. This divisional win against Washington was amazing this past past few weeks here. So yeah, I'm amazed at the turnaround. I think they've reaped the rewards of the right leadership shift. And I just put down on Daniel Jones. He's the coach. He's the quarterback of the future. I don't think anyone has done more with less in the position.
Yeah, I agree, especially going back to Daboll. He just seems like he has the team well prepared. He seems like they're fighting for him. He has the command and the respect of the locker room. No coach to me has done more with less. When you talk about the injuries and they're bringing guys off the practice field and guys off the street, and Landon Collins is coming back, and guys are just executing as best as they can. Obviously, in certain games, you see the talent deficiency. The Philadelphia game speaks out there, and they've had a couple of stumbling losses as of late, but rebounded well in Washington. But he just seems to really, really have that locker room under command, and these guys really love playing for him. The only thing I got to knock him on, David, you can't put a Dory Jackson in punt return, man. You sacrificed your best corner. That was terrible, man. I couldn't believe they did that. It was Jason Sehorn all over again for me. I didn't like that, man. And I don't know when the Dory Jackson's going to come back, but they need him.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with that. I understand on both sides. These are like really, you're trying to get your best players, and honestly, most players, they're competitors, and so like it's a tough call. It ended up being the wrong call.
Yeah.
If Adoree Jackson takes one to the house,
Right.
then no one questioning,
Right. Right.
questioning the decision. So I agree with you, and those are those live by the sword, die by the sword. You look at 4th down and 9 again in that Washington game, live by the sword, die by the sword. And he's made more of those right decisions that have energized this organization, these teams, and players love it when you believe in them. They love it when you bet on them and give them the opportunity to do something that no one believed that they can do. And I think that's the fabric that he's built into the culture, and he's getting the best out of the players that line up for him.
You talk about Daniel Jones, and you did put a tweet out there earlier this week or last week. You felt like this is our guy. Daniel Jones is here for the New York Football Giants. I was shaky on him, especially coming off of last year. I didn't like his pocket presence. His decision-making was questionable. Obviously, the turnovers always killed us. But I've been impressed with him this year, man. How can you not? The ability to get the job done with, I don't even know who he's throwing to out there. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins has come out of nowhere. I still don't. He's done more than Kenny Golladay has done in 2 years. I can't understand what happened with Kenny Golladay. But Daniel Jones just seems to be getting it done no matter who's out there. Richie James and Bellinger, the rookie, and all these guys. And cutting down the turnovers, leading the league in that area against other guys who are throwing to Pro Bowl receivers. He's getting the job done, man. I would be on board with the Giants keeping Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think this is obviously a GM situation, but if he agrees, this is a 2-3 year deal. He's not talking about highest paid quarterback money, but he's earned the right to command a better team, right? And I think that's what the Giants are trying to build toward. I don't like the franchise at $30 million. We'll see where they're at with Saquon Barkley. They got to figure out how they're going to tie him up as well.
Yeah.
So, but when you're talking about making all the right, more or less all the right decisions, and working with less, to me, he's very similar to Jalen Hurts a year or two ago, right? And there has not been any stability around him. At least now the culture is stable, the coaching is stable, and if they can, solidify the offensive line is coming along, they can solidify those particular areas and get weapons in place. There's no reason not to believe that this can be a dynamic force with him at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that I was critical of Gettleman like many, but if you look at the guys that are contributing on this team, it's the Gettleman picks. It's Jones, Saquon, Andrew Thomas. On the defense, it's Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, a beast, absolutely beast. McKinney before he got hurt. Ojulari is doing things out there. So it's funny, man, that a lot of these Gettleman picks are starting to show out.
Listen, I think he's a fan. I had him as a personnel guy, as a player, and I was surprised at his leadership style. It was frightening. The amount of arrogance, but that's the only knock that I'll say. As a talent evaluator, no, that was intact. And I think these are subtle dynamics where most people can miss the ball, and most ownership groups can easily overlook because people have track records and their competencies. So he's put some talent in the building, and he had some early misses though that set him back, and I think that was a part of the evaluation as well.
Big time. Big time. We're talking to David Tyree, Super Bowl champion, and also the host of the Catch the Moment podcast. So to everybody in the chat, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. David, on these Knicks, at the time of this recording, these Knicks are riding a 7-game winning streak. Jalen Brunson, their new point guard acquisition, has been nothing short of outstanding. Julius Randle having a great year. Thibodeau has made some adjustments and really making this team a defense first type of team. A Thibodeau identity is certainly being established. Well, what's been your thoughts on the Knicks so far?
I think you probably said it. My biggest thoughts was, since I don't watch the entire landscape of the NBA, I didn't know how dynamic Jalen Brunson was. When you talk about finally, when you talk about, so this is me as a fan. And now we're starting to see some of the fruit, I like to believe, with some of these adjustments, as you said, with Thibodeau on the defensive side. It's great to see an energized outfit from the Knicks play style. I did like the reinsertion of Quentin Grimes to the starting lineup, and the talent is there. And that's what we heard from Leon Rose earlier this year. If you really ask me, just like I said, from the fan and not just the analyst side of it, I would have loved to see us trade the house for Spider Mitchell. and that's, but I do like the State of the Union in light of it seems like a belief in style, culture in relation to Thibodeau being a seasoned coach in the NBA and bearing some fruit. But to me, it's the Jalen Brunson command of this team and this offense that now is accentuating the star power of Julius Randle to allow us to be a force and be in position to make a nice playoff run.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, sitting in sixth, tied with the Sixers, looking at fifth. So things seem to be looking up for the Knicks right now. We'll see how they fare this week as they play the Sixers on Christmas Day. The Catch the Moment podcast. Tell the fans what they can expect from that podcast and what made you jump into the podcast room.
Yeah, man, I'm a big guy on just highlighting people across the board. I want people like yourself who may or may not be known, but are doing tremendous things. And I want people who are well accomplished. And at the end of the day, what's your story to your moment of success? I think, everybody wants to be successful, but we first need to understand success is relative. And everybody's climbing to a moment where they can be recognized. We want the journey. We want the pain points. We want that moment of transparency. And so I want to create a platform that elevates and shares stories of triumph, but also through the lens of the process. So that's what Catch the Moment is all about. You'll get people that athletes, owners, business owners, entrepreneurs, media personalities, all alike, and you're gonna get that true sense of transparency. So give them a seat at the table, and share these journeys that will help people to find those solutions to get to their moment. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, and you're also the host of Odds and Ends, a betting show on MSG. You have DT3 Enterprises, the Juice Bar in Jersey. So as you close out the year and you look into 2023, what are some of your goals from an entrepreneurial standpoint and in media?
Yeah, man, media is leading the way. I'm really having, just great to let my voice find its way, especially in the New York, New Jersey community. And then moving forward, we launched the pod just to be a platform and an avenue to elevate others. And then we're moving into the Catch Camp at the Super Bowl. So the Catch Camp is going to be a football camp in the morning and the leadership and development and careers in sports in the afternoon. We're going to launch it in Arizona, hopefully it's going to be in that Phoenix metro area the weekend before the Super Bowl. And we'll be, doing media and radio row. So, and then we're going to bring it back home to Jersey, of course. So exciting things in 2023 between the podcast and the Catch Camp. And, I just can't help but do. It's been a lot. There's a lot to my story that's been told. There's a lot more to be told. And just want to continue to live a life as a lens of inspiration, but ultimately, inspiring people to know that they can get great done. So we're excited about it on all platforms, definitely looking to share more. Create an avenue that will continue to lead the way, and let that light shine so that people continue to have that avenue of inspiration, man.
Yeah, well said, man. Absolutely well said. And the last question I have, it's one that I ask of my first time guests, and that is, how do you want to be remembered? How does David Tyree want to be remembered?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, as a man who represents Christ in the earth, that's the first thing. Then a good son, amazing husband, and a dedicated father. And I think that everything I do, my greatest goal is that it will reflect the light of God, give people hope that all things are possible. And I think the soundbite of my career, I always look at the Catch as a memorial and a metaphor that all things are possible. And now my life moving forward in these particular areas of my life, that it will continue to demonstrate that all things are possible. And I know that with God, all things are possible. So that will be my defining legacy, is that, with God, all things are possible, and to be an inspiration and hope to everybody. Let that light, love. I always say I got love on tap. So let the love shine, and we'll continue to get great done.
Well said, man. And, I definitely appreciate you coming on the pod because I wanted to talk about so many different things. Obviously, the Giants and the Knicks, two things that we certainly enjoy, and the memories that you brought for us Giants fans in Super Bowl 42 was something I'll never forget. But, I was at a Knicks game a couple months back, and one of my colleagues that was with me, he was like, let me buy you a drink. So we at the bar and we're vibing and whatnot. And he shared a story with me that he was on a journey to sobriety as well. And so I definitely applauded him and appreciated him for sharing that with me. And as someone who has been impacted by others who struggled in my family, friends, with alcoholism and struggle with sobriety, I just felt like that was that avenue that I really wanted to connect with you on, because your story is certainly one that is a road to redemption. And so I definitely appreciate you for coming on and sharing that story, man. Much appreciated.
CP, I appreciate the avenue, man. Like I said, we all need it. I think more people than not, they want to do the right things. They want to excel. And I know that there's a road for everybody. I know that, when I think about God's heart towards people is that they would excel and do well. Like whether someone chooses my faith or not is not my business. It's just about living it out authentically in a way where they know that there's an avenue of hope. So I appreciate the platform, appreciate your platform. Keep leading the way, and we'll keep the dialogue open.
Let's do it, man. Where can people find you? The best place for people to connect with you? Leave them with your website, your Twitter handle, everything.
Oh yeah, man. DavidTyree85.com for the website. DTyree85 on the gram, and Tyree Nation on Twitter. But hopefully it will. I'm active. I'm active. Definitely look us up. Catch the Moment podcast is something we're really excited about. So please, we're on all platforms. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, so we can keep the good vibes going. Build a community where we can celebrate and elevate. That's really what this platform is about: celebrating and elevating, and getting great things done. And so, be on the lookout. We're going to attack 2023 on our storm.
Celebrate and elevate. David Tyree, much appreciated. Let's go Giants. Let's go Knicks. And much success to you, man. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks again, family.